I've got Mark Robbins, the Mark Robbins. Super happy to have you here, man. Good to see you. How have you been?
Yeah, good. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Awesome, man. Super excited. You're gonna have a great session today. I gotta go check on my people on my space station because yesterday I had xenomorphs running around. Today, I don't know what it is. It might be hell from Space Odyssey. I don't know. We'll see. So I'm gonna go ahead and let you take this away, man. Let me know if you need anything. You might have a buzzer or something over there that you can let me know in the space station. But I'll see you around. I'll be back for Q&A. All right.
All right, nice one. Cheers.
All
So
right.
yeah,
See ya.
thanks a lot for having me here today. Yeah, we're going to talk about email developments, looking at past, present, future, all the fun stuff. This is not so much about predictions of what I think is going to happen. It's more of an optimistic view of what I'd like to happen, what I'm hoping to happen, what I'm looking at, and sort of what I'm pushing people towards looking at. So my name is Mark Robbins. I'm a software engineer at Parcel. If you're not familiar with Parcel, go and check us out, parcel.io, all your email coding needs. I am one of the 5 co-admins of the Email Markup Consortium. So we're working together to just make email better, really, working on sort of getting collaboration between everyone. I'm also a member of the AMP for Email Working Group, so working on sort of future email sort of fun things with AMP. And yeah, I'm online. If you don't get time to answer all the questions today, always drop me a message online. I'm always in the Email Geek Slack. I'm on the LinkedIn. I'm on the Blue Sky. I've got my website, goodemailcode.com, which is where I share code for email that is good. And I'm on the email. If anybody still uses email, I'm at mark.robbins@customer.io. So yeah, drop me messages, come and chat. And yeah, I'm always open to questions. So code like it's 1999. Now, this is something that people still say now. I hear it a lot. I sort of quite often go to web conferences and people tell me this a lot. And I think a lot of people do still code with this mindset of coding like it's 1999. And to be fair, it was true. This did used to be true. This was true for a long time, for like about 12 months, I'd say this was true. Then the millennium hit. Y2K didn't destroy everything. And we should have moved past it at that point, and we haven't. And it's sort of, I think it's one of the things that's holding us back a bit. So being an email developer is now sort of considered more of a legitimate job. For a long time, I think one of the reasons why it was held back is because people weren't taking it seriously. It was often considered a more junior position. So you get a junior web developer, like, oh, you go and work on the email until you get a bit more experience, then you can work on web stuff. Or a junior marketer, oh, you deal with the code until you can do more of the marketing stuff. But now we're seeing more and more people are sticking with it and actually taking it seriously. And that's why we're seeing it being pushed forward over the last sort of 5 or so years. I think this is happening more and more, people sticking with it and actually, taking it very seriously. But we still have a long way to go. Over 99.9% of emails fail basic accessibility testing. That's not great, right? So this stat is from the Email Markup Consortium Accessibility Report, which came out in May this year. It's an annual report, so we'll have another one coming out next May, so keep an eye out for that. So we collected around about 300,000 emails from all over the place, different languages, different industries, big companies, small companies, all kinds of emails. And we ran them through the Parcel Accessibility Checker, which at that time was 56 accessibility rules, all specific to email. We are adding to it all the time. We've just added color contrast for both light mode and dark mode. So the next report is going to take that into account, and yeah, we may see some more failures. But it's worth pointing out that only 5 brands out of all these emails, only 5 brands passed without issue. And I should probably say that one of those was Email and Acid, and another one of those was Mailjet. So yeah, like, well done to the team. Like, no notes, just keep doing what you're doing. But looking at sort of the top 10 issues, 5 out of those top 10 issues, half of them were to do with missing attributes, missing language attributes, missing direction attributes, and missing alt attributes. So those 3 things caused 5 out of the top 10 issues. These all predate 1999. These are all like really old. This is like sort of day one, sort of like early, maybe not day one, early web development stuff, early HTML spec. these are simple things to add. They are, quick to add, very, very small amount of code to add. And the great thing is no difference in rendering when you do. Well, actually, direction does make a difference in rendering, but if you've got the wrong direction, your rendering's broken. So it could be fixing things. But these are sort of quite important things, and we're failing on it. And I think one of the things is our attitude is holding us back. It's not the technology. We always like to blame the email clients and blame a lot of the technology for us. But most of the time, a lot of the time it's our attitude holding us back, and we need to think about these things a bit more. To be fair, it is the technology to some extent as well, because a lot of these emails are built with drag and drop editors that don't have these things built in. But still, that's the attitude. That's the attitude of those drag and drop editors. Like, they're not building these like core basics of HTML into them, and they need to. And I've had a lot of conversations with people at ESPs and email creation tools, and everybody's very open to this, and more people are making accessibility improvements. So there is that's something I think we're going to see a lot of as we go into the future. Better accessibility tools, better accessibility from emails created with drag and drop tools and various WYSIWYGs and things like that. So we need to be coding more like it's the future, code like it's 2024. And another reason for this is why accessibility is so important is there's an increase in lawsuits around digital accessibility. Here's some stats here from the Usable Nets research across a number of sources of legal sources across the US. It's only looking at sort of the first half of this year for this year's numbers, but every year we're seeing an increase of these lawsuits coming up. A large percentage of them are e-commerce companies, 84% e-commerce companies, 81% of the top 500 e-commerce retailers in the US received lawsuits in the last 4 years. So this is growing, this is big, this is hitting a lot of companies, but it's not just the big companies. 70% of companies that received these issues have revenue under $25 million. So sort of small to medium companies are getting these lawsuits as well. It's hitting everybody. This is important. We need to sort of take this into account. Now, admittedly, 95% of the cases they have referenced here are to do with websites on desktop, but email's next. Email follows the web in a lot of ways, and we're seeing this happen on the web. Once those lawsuits have run out, the lawyers are not going to go on holiday. They're going to start looking for other people to sue, because that's lawyers like doing that, I think. I don't know, I'm not a lawyer. So yeah, we need to be taking it more and more seriously. I'm expecting to see an increase still again next year, and more coming into the email space as well. So one of the things that I talk about in the ways I think about accessible code and sort of more sort of future thinking ways of coding email is what I call semantic first email code. It's something I've been talking about for a couple of years now. And I'm seeing more and more people moving into this sort of style of coding as well. The idea is we take it back to the basics. If we send an email, we use simple semantic code. It's well supported. Heading tags, paragraph tags, list tags, link tags, they work. And yet lists as well. If you don't style them, they work perfectly. And all this code, if you structure it well, if you structure it correctly, it's fully accessible and it works everywhere. It renders in every email client. It's accessible in every email client. It's responsive in every email client. You start changing the viewport width and the code just shrinks down. Like the paragraph gets narrower. It just works. And it works in dark mode. Like by default, it's a white background with black text. You put it into dark mode or forced dark mode, whichever way it's done. Then it'll switch to the black background with white text. But that works. It's still consumable information. So by taking it back to the basics, that works. And Naomi and Emily are doing a talk later about sort of the simple text emails and how they work well. Definitely worth checking that out. But not everybody wants that, and sometimes we do want to do something more advanced and more designed and something that looks pretty. And we need to consider these basics as we're doing this, as we're adding our design, as we're adding our layouts. We need to really think back to these basics. One of the key things that I've always say, avoid table layouts where possible. Tables cause so many issues, accessibility issues, rendering issues. Just like most of the code I look at as well, you could easily strip out half the tables without having any, and actually improve the rendering rather than having any issues from it. Personally, I'm a big fan of ghost tables. I think every single layout table should be a ghost table. I know other people disagree, but either way, reduce the amount of tables is something that I think a lot of people can do. Keeping this content fluid, trying to avoid like adding fixed widths on things and making things too rigid, like allow it to flow, make it responsive, even where media queries, even where styles aren't supported, everything should just flow naturally. And that helps reduce a lot of issues as well. And also only use the code that is needed. A lot of people really overcode things, and this is not just adding loads of tables, but adding extra styles and doubling down on things which aren't needed. So reducing that makes the code more reliable, it reduces bugs, and it's more readable as well, more maintainable. So the general idea here is stop putting Outlook first. When I started building email, I was always thinking Outlook, 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 and then starting adding all the workarounds to make it work in every other email client. If you flip that on its head and you start prioritizing semantic code, good quality semantic code, and then you can add in some fallbacks for Outlook later. But this is going to end up with much less code, much more reliable code, much more forward-thinking code, future-proof code, and it just works all around very well. So this is something I'm really pushing people towards at the moment. And really, that comes down to this. If 10% of your email opens on Windows Outlook, you shouldn't compromise the other 90% users. This is something I've been saying for a long time. And every time I say it, I get the same bit of feedback. It's like, oh, Mark, yeah, we get that. And in an ideal world, we'll go with that as well. However, we're B2B. We have a lot of Outlook users. So it's like, okay, yeah. So I've taken that on board and I've slightly rephrased it. If 90% of your email opens on Windows Outlook, you shouldn't compromise the other 10% of users. You shouldn't compromise any users. Why are we compromising people? We should be giving the best experience possible to every single user. So this leads me nicely into Microsoft Word in email. So I'm sure some of you know, some of you may not, but Outlook on Windows desktop, the app is powered by Microsoft Word, as is the Windows Mail app on Windows desktop as well. They're powered by Microsoft Word rather than an HTML rendering engine. This makes no sense, and it's what causes a number of the issues and means the number of ways we code are based off this. But the good news is Outlook 2021 is the last version to be using Word rendering, and also the Outlook 365 equivalent version. So support will be dropped on the 13th of October 2026. So big party at my house, bring your own bottle, everybody's invited, should be fun. Realistically, we're probably not going to see a drop off then suddenly. Maybe 2030, if I'm being optimistic, we can maybe start looking at cutting support. But what we should do is we should be starting to see a downturn. When I look at my Outlook clients, for I use for testing, there's a very prominent banner on there saying switch to the new Outlook. Yeah, it's not really a user decision a lot of the time. It's based on sort of companies, and they'll be the whole company will move over. So that's why we'd expect a bit of a delay. But hopefully, we're going to start seeing in the next few months and next year or so that the Outlook usage going down. So that's a big win for email, for accessibility as well, and in general. So just think about sort of in terms of building our emails and how we approach coding our emails. I want to sort of show you some of the things in my email developer toolkit and sort of talk through like some of the things we're looking at. If we take inspiration from modern web development, very few people would just sort of sit down in front of a blank page and start writing code. There's a number of frameworks, a number of tools. There's loads of really useful things people use to create their emails. If you're doing a single page website and using like putting on React, it's probably a bit overkill, but people still do it. But when you're working at scale, these things really, really help improve your workflow, reducing errors and making things better. Email is moving in that same direction. We're seeing more and more tools coming out. We can use web tools, and I have in the past used a number of web tools for sort of my email workflow. But the email-specific tools are so much better because it gets all those little nuances that email has. So if you're looking for expanding your toolkit, look at if there is an email-specific equivalent before using a web tool. So some of these things, components, I think, is one of the biggest things that I'm seeing more and more people use, and I would think they're brilliant and everybody should be using them. I work at Parcel, so I use Parcel components, but there's lots of other frameworks out there and lots of other components that you can use. The advantages are like you're reducing repetition. If we look at like something like a CTA link, which I'm not going to call a button because it's not a button, it's a link, and we're developers, so we talk about links, we don't talk about buttons. So anyway, it's a link. So a CTA link, it's quite a chunk of code that you put in every email. Probably it's in every email. Some emails it might be in 2, 3, 4 times. That piece of code, if you can just have a component for it, it's very quick to insert it. And all you need to change on it is probably the URL or the destination of where the link is taking you and the link text. And then the design of it will probably stay the same. But you might have a couple of variations, might have like a primary, a secondary version of it. So again, you can put a little attribute on your component just to flick between them. So then every time you use that, you just put it in very quickly, and you want to change it, just change that one attribute to version to be the secondary, and now it's a secondary CTA. Very, very quick to use, very, very scalable. Also, this is reducing errors because this is the same piece of code. It's a much smaller bit of code, so there's less chance that you type something wrong. It's and it spreads across everything. It's the same piece of code, so every email that uses a component is using that same bit of code. So it scales very well. If there is an error with it, then that error is in every email. So you make sure you test it properly. But also, if it's in every email, it gets found much faster and it's much quicker to fix. And you fix it in one place, and every email is fixed. So also, if email clients change things all the time, we can react fast to all these changes. The email clients, maybe Yahoo pushes an update and it's got a new bug, or Outlook does something that Outlook does, and things don't render as we expect anymore. We can change that one component. We're only changing one place, one thing, and then every email that uses that is now fixed. It's so much quicker. If you've got a redesign going on, you change your core components, and then all your email templates are now in the new design. If some social media brand decides for some weird reason to ditch their well-established, long-standing logo and replace it with a little closed window sign, the little X thing, then we can change that in one place, and it's updated in every single email. So good. It's so scalable, so fast. Such a great way of working. Also, we look at automated processes. Inlining CSS is something that's been around for ages, and it's worked great, and it works really well, and a lot of people use it. But there's more and more tools that people are using now. Minification is growing and growing and growing. We're seeing more and more people using that. It's just reducing your file size, which improves things like your environmental impact because it's smaller file size, less storage. It can send faster. It can impact deliverability, having something too big. Gmail clipping. It's fixing all these issues with the minification. Also code cleanup, so removing unused CSS and unused class and ID names, just strip them out of the code, and it's big old savings coming out for that. And there's certain things we can auto fix. We just pushed quite recently an accessibility auto fix. It's always best to fix the source, but these sort of things can help sort of quickly get things up to speed in the short term. Collaboration is always key. There's more and more collaborative tools coming out, and multiple user inputs. You have multiple people working on the same email at the same time, which is really good to speed things up. However, with that, then there's more room for error, because if somebody changes something, I'm working on email, it's working great, and I go to bed and I get up in the morning and somebody in a different time zone has been working on it, and it suddenly doesn't work anymore. I don't know what they've done. How do I fix it? So that's where version control comes in. I can look at the version. I can either just roll back to the previous version, which doesn't have the bug, or I can see what change they've made and see what they're trying to do and fix it from there. It's just a really nice way of managing your code and scaling your workflow and your team. Also working with feedback loops and the way we sort of QA emails and getting more people, more eyes on it, more people, sort of more interaction of the feedback and the QA processes. If we can, using collaborative tools to do that, it's a great way of speeding up our workflow. And accessibility tooling, always key. I'm always going to chat about accessibility because it's important, right? We need to. Automated testing is great, and it's come a long way, and we do a lot of it. Simulated testing is another thing. Like you can use things like simulate some visual impairments like color blindness, and so you put a filter on and it just simulates something. It's not in any way what the user is seeing. Like don't trick yourself into thinking you're having that experience that user's having, but it does help highlight issues. And if you can see an issue there, then it's probably an issue somewhere. If you don't see an issue, it doesn't mean there's no issues. That's always the case with accessibility. If you highlight an issue with the automated testing, with the simulated testing, with the manual testing, it's an issue. If you don't highlight it, it doesn't necessarily mean there isn't an issue. It makes it tricky, but we can get the low-hanging fruit with this. And then manual testing as well is always important. I'm not sure that people don't realize that there's a lot of accessibility tools built into every operating system. All the popular operating systems have screen readers built in, various other accessibility tools. If you have a keyboard, right, that's an assistive technology. You can test how your emails work with keyboard navigation. This is something very important with interactive emails that you want to test as well. AI, we have to talk about it because that's what everybody's talking about at the moment. AI, is it good? Is it bad? I'm still split on this. It's bad. It's overconfident. You can ask AI anything and it will confidently give you an answer. It could be completely made up, but it'll say it with confidence. And that's a risk. That's a big risk. And we need to sort of think about that. And I think this is one of the things, like QA is, with the growth of AI, we should be seeing a growth of QA alongside it. AI makes mistakes that people don't make. But it's really good at things. So it's hard to know if something it's telling you is true or not, unless you have that initial knowledge. But it can be good for some processes, which we'll go into later. AI doesn't understand email code currently. It's terrible. If you ask it to give you some email code, it's completely useless. But one of the things to think about that is public AI learns from the loudest voices, not necessarily the correct voices. If you think that over 99.9% of emails fail basic accessibility testing, then you'd expect it to be broken code that it's learning from all this. It's going to give you broken code. So if all these emails are broken, it will deliver the same thing. So that's an important thing. Also, AI struggles to think outside the box. It's quite restrictive in its thinking a lot of the time. So some of the more creative ideas and some of the more like really cool creative emails that we see, I don't think AI would come up with those sorts of things. I think it would struggle to, because it's very much in the brackets it's given, and it's with the prompts that it's given, it will work within that. But saying all that, AI is great. I love it. It's brilliant. It's here to assist us. It's not here to replace us. There's a lot that we can do with it. Like all the other tools I talked about in the toolkit, it speeds up our processes. If we can speed up our process and we can work more efficiently, then we can spend more time doing some more cool stuff, right? And we all, like, as developers, we like to build cool stuff. We don't want to build all the boring stuff. So using AI to assist us in that is useful. One thing I was really surprised about is you can actually have a conversation and get inspired. Like I said, the email code it gives is really bad. And I asked a couple of the AI tools around, I asked it to give me some code for an email template, and it's wrong. And I say, well, this is wrong because it will fail because of this, this, and this. It's like, oh, okay. How about this? There's like, no, because it'll fail because of this, this, and this. And so how about this? And it just keeps giving new ideas. And I really like that. And it sort of felt a bit like when you're chatting to a colleague and you're sort of like trying to sort of brainstorm some ideas. It's, oh, could we do this? Oh no, that won't work. Could we do this? Oh, that won't work. And you just keep getting more ideas coming back through. It's quite a good experience. And I think I want to dig into that a bit more. It can help find errors in your code, like simple things like missing brackets, wrong kind of quotes, like a missing comma here or there, like no closing tags. It's quite good at that sort of stuff, which is very rules-based. It can help reduce repetition. I use Copilot in GitHub Copilot in VS Code, and as I'm typing things, if I'm doing something which is a repetitive thing, I say I'll code this piece, and I'm going to code something else which is very similar but slightly different. As I start typing it, it knows what I'm doing. It's learning from the code that I've written rather than looking at the sort of the public code and the big accessibility failures. It's looking at the code that I've just written, and it understands that and understands the context. So it's really good at that sort of stuff. And it's evolving fast. So everything I've said is probably out of date already. It's moving fast. So it's something that we want to keep an eye on, keep learning from. And I'm running low on time, but just sort of some of the things that I would like to see more of in the future and things that I'm going to be looking at, and I'd like to hear what more people looking into these sorts of things. Email performance, but thinking about it in terms of like web performance, like load times, like page speeds and email speeds, rather than performance in terms of conversion. But the two are related, potentially. I haven't done the research yet. I don't know. That also kind of leads into sustainability. Now, Ted's got one of the on-demand sessions, which I haven't watched yet, but I'm looking forward to that, around email sustainability. I think it's an important thing. It's very early days of it, and the conversations are very early, but it's something that's growing. And I think more and more people are going to be asking about this. So it's something that we all should be looking into and thinking about for the future. And then user experience is something I come back to quite often because I don't think it's really talked about in email that much. And there's a lot of bad user experience that we give to people. And I think a lot of the time people say the purpose of email is get somebody to click on through to your website. That's not true. If you're thinking like that, you're going to give a bad user experience. You're just thinking about forcing people to click, tricking people into clicking. It's not about that. So what is it we want them to do? Are we giving them information? Are we asking them to buy something? What is it we're trying to get from them? And thinking about the bigger picture and how that user experience works. So those are things I want to look into. Let me know if you've got thoughts around this, and let's get into some questions. And yeah, thank you very much for everything.
Yeah, Mark, some questions real quick. Had some technical difficulties on my end, but it's all right. It's all right. Okay, cool. Let's try and look at some of these really quick. Oh, I love this one. What are some of the best classes or trainings to learn how to best code in semantic code? What do you think, Mark?
Well, actually, I'm working on an email course currently. So we've got it at parcel.io/learn-email, I think it is. But that'll be out soon. So check that one out. But there's a few other things that you can look at, and just sort of looking at sort of actually some of the web code around semantic code is quite useful. I do a lot of stuff on like the W3C site. I've got some good sort of examples of, if you sort of do a search for accessible, whatever it is you're trying to build, accessible lists, accessible data tables, you get some good things up that way, and a lot of the time that works in email as well, but it's about testing it. But yeah, that's
nice. Let's see here. I love this one. This is a really cool one. What do you think? This one comes from Ray, but what do you think someone new to email development or development in general should prioritize after accessibility?
That's a good question. I think, yeah, like accessibility, I think is a really key thing. User experience, I think, is an interesting one. Yeah, so like, don't make everything a link. Don't force people in. Don't trick people. Like, what is the experience that we want to give people? What is we trying to get from them? Think about sort of the mindset of the user. Looking at that stuff, I think, is really interesting. Also, like if you're looking into your email tools and your workflows and how you build things, if you can speed that up, then that gives you more time to look at some of these fun things. And then you can start building and building, and then go into the fun things like interactive email, which is a lot of fun, but yeah, quite a bit of work.
Got it. Let me see here. All right, we got time for one real quick one. Let's see. Oh, love this one, of course. Any good AI tools you'd recommend to use with email coding, or besides AI tools?
Not that I've seen yet. Everything I've used has been horrendous, and adds more time than saving it. But well, Copilot actually, I suppose, is quite good. Copilot is good because it's learning from the context of the file that you're working in. So that is probably one of the good ones. But yeah, there's not a huge amount that I'm a fan of yet, but they're coming.
Yeah, they are. Hopefully not for all of us, but well, Mark, I appreciate you stopping by and hanging out with us, especially meeting us in space and having a good time. But y'all, make sure you follow Mark on his social media and all that fun stuff. He puts out so much cool stuff, so please give him a follow and stay in contact with all his good stuff. So, Mark, just want to appreciate you and let you know, and thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you stopping by for Email Cat Mission Control. So, hope to see you down the line, my friend.
Cheers, mate. Thanks a lot. It's been fun.
Cheers. See you down the road. All right. Up next, I'll meet you guys at a Abby McKeon session. So I'm gonna go ahead and migrate over there, and I'll see you in just a moment.